It began with a whisper. A junior aide, pale and shaking, found Captain Ibrahim Traoré behind the barracks at 3 a.m. No uniform, no weapons, just a notebook in his hand. "Sir, they're moving you to the eastern outpost tonight." Traoré didn't look up from the notebook. "At this hour?" The aide nodded, eyes darting to the shadows. "They say it's an emergency inspection, but it's not an inspection, sir. It's an exit. One you won't come back from." Traoré closed the notebook. No panic, just a single exhale, the kind that freezes the air more than a scream. He'd known something was coming. He'd seen his supply request suddenly approved, too quickly. His transport arranged by officers who never touched logistics before. Too neat, too convenient. Now the pieces locked into place. They didn't dare strip him of rank openly. They didn't dare arrest him where the soldiers could see. So they chose the oldest trick. Send him into the dead zone, a strip of badlands crawling with bandits, claimed by no flag. He would disappear, a regrettable loss blamed on enemy insurgents. Perfect, clean. But they didn't understand one thing. Traoré never traveled blind. Within an hour he was dressed in his standard fatigue. No convoy, no ceremony. Instead, he quietly visited the motor pool, found Sergeant Bako, an old mechanic whose son Traoré had once pulled out of a corruption charge. "Sergeant," he said softly, "the truck they're fueling for me, sabotage it. Quietly. Make it fail before sunrise." Bako didn't ask why. He just nodded. "Will you need another vehicle?" Traoré shook his head. "Number I'll walk where they don't watch." At dawn, the convoy commander arrived to find an engine coughing black smoke. Delay, confusion, excuses. Meanwhile, Traoré slipped past the eastern checkpoint on foot, a path only local villagers knew. He didn't run. He gathered. He spoke to herdsmen, tea sellers, river guards, the eyes and ears no map could chart. And from them, he learned the truth. The so-called insurgent zone was empty. The real threat was waiting behind the next hill, paid mercenaries hired by the same hands that signed his deployment. It wasn't war, it was a bullet with his name on it. But Traoré had no intention of becoming a martyr. If they wanted a trap, he'd build one better, one that would snap shut, on the hands that fed it. By sunrise, the convoy was still grounded at base, engineers scratching their heads, cursing old engines. But Traoré was miles ahead, moving through fields and creek beds, appearing and vanishing like a rumor. He didn't run to safety. He ran straight into the mouth of the trap, but on his terms. By late morning, he found the mercenary camp. Exactly where the herdsman said, tucked behind a crumbling colonial fort, disguised as a rural security outpost. 10 men. Foreign accents, heavy weapons, no insignia, hired ghosts, waiting for a target who would never come by truck. Traoré watched from the thorn bush ridge above. He noted the vehicle plates, the supply crates, marked with Ministry of Defense stamps. Proof, names, trail. He needed all of it. That night he slipped into a nearby village. No rank. Just a tired traveler sharing tea. He found a trusted contact. Adama, a smuggler-turned-guide who owed him his freedom. "Adama, how fast can you get these photos to the capital?" Adama raised an eyebrow. "Depends. Do you want it quiet or loud?" Traoré didn't blink. "Both." They drafted the plan on a rice sack under a lantern. Local youth sneak close, slash fuel lines on the mercenary trucks. Villagers fake cattle stampedes to scatter patrols. Adama's runners deliver photos, coordinates, and supply manifest copies to independent journalists, and to a handful of junior officers secretly loyal to Traoré. No bullets, no war, just chaos, cameras, and truth. At midnight, the cattle ran wild. Shouts, flashlights, confusion. Under cover of hooves and dust, Traoré crawled behind the supply crates, clicked photos of ministry seals under moonlight, snapped images of mercenaries cursing in a foreign tongue, then melted back into the grass before the first torch swung his way. By dawn, the first batch of photos hit local radio stations' encrypted inboxes. By noon, a young lieutenant in the capital leaked them on an anonymous message board. Within hours, the story broke nationwide. Secret kill team hired with defense funds. Target, one man. Back at the mercenary camp, the hired guns found themselves stranded. Trucks dry, food stores gone, villagers refusing to sell water. And Traoré? He was already halfway back to the barracks, walking through a cane field, blending with farmers, leaving behind nothing but footprints and a scandal big enough to shake generals awake. The scandal detonated like dry powder under sun. By morning, radio hosts replayed the leaked recordings, local villagers describing men in foreign fatigues, supply crates stamped "for official use only" stacked next to foreign weapons. By noon, families of soldiers demanded answers. By sunset, even the state news, usually obedient, couldn't keep silent. At the ministry, General Kasoma locked himself in his office. He barked orders through a crack in the door. Blame rogue contractors. Frame Traoré for forging documents. Shut the radio down. Now. But the radio stayed up. Because for once, the men who would carry out his orders were too busy reading the same leaks on their phones, nodding to each other, whispering in mess halls. He was supposed to die there, and they called him a traitor. Meanwhile, Traoré didn't run. He didn't hide. He walked openly through the main barracks gate, the same gate the generals thought he'd never pass through alive again. Young soldiers lined the path. Some saluted, some simply patted his shoulder, no words needed. One whispered, barely audible, "They wanted you gone. Now they're the ones packing bags." Inside the command hall, a special session was underway. Journalists swarmed the courtyard. Guards looked away as a low-ranking officer opened a side door for Traoré. He stepped in, dusty boots, plain uniform, no fanfare. Every senior face turned to him like he was a ghost, come to read their sins aloud. But he didn't shout. He didn't wave papers. He only laid one photograph on the polished table: mercenary rifles, ministry crates, one bullet, engraved with an export mark matching official stock. He looked at Kasoma, the man who once toasted him with expensive wine. "You failed at killing me," Traoré said softly, "but you succeeded at proving what you really are. No threats, no demands. Just a fact, spoken so plainly the walls felt closer for hearing it." That night, the High Council stripped Kasoma and his circle of rank. By dawn, they were on trucks, not to villas, but to tribunal cells. Their estates frozen, their assets seized. Their names no longer shielded by brass or ribbons. Traoré refused any title offered in the chaos that followed. He stood before the soldiers once more and said, "I am not here to rule. I am here to remind you. Loyalty is to country, not to men who fear the daylight." And tucked in his pocket, folded 3 times, was the deployment order meant to end him at dawn. He kept it, not as anger, as proof that a man who walks into a trap with his eyes open never leaves empty-handed.